Hello, my name is Walter Wimberly, and I'm an assistant professor of computer science. Now, a lot of times in these videos, I like to answer questions that either potential students or new students to computer science are asking. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different, though. Now, I'm creating this because of another video I saw, and I thought the professor did a pretty good job, but I thought I could explain it maybe a little bit differently because of the age of the video and how things are changing. That topic is why you shouldn't cheat. Now, the professor I saw had a couple of really good comments, and he said, some people say you're going to tarnish the reputation of school, and he correctly identified the fact that a single person is probably not going to tarnish a whole school because of a cheating incident. Now, if you have a situation where you have a whole class, I saw a case of this in Florida where a very large class had approximately 30 to 40% of the students cheating. That created quite a scandal, and that's a little bit differently. That's where you have several hundred students cheating in a particular class. But a single person, probably not. Now, the professor said that sometimes people will say, well, you're hurting your fellow students. And now, the answer is you're probably not, and the professor mentioned that, with the exception of if there's a curve for the class or for the assignment, and that's not used a lot in most college classes. So, why would you not want to cheat? And for that, I want to take you out of the idea of that question for just a second. I'm going to answer you another question. This is a question I ask a lot of my computer science students in their first year. And that is, how do you tie your shoes? Now, you're probably thinking, well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, it has a lot more to do with it than you realize. So, if I ask you, how do you tie your shoes? Could you pause this video for a minute and thoroughly explain every step that goes into how you tie your shoes? And could you do it without actually stopping to tie your shoes and walk me through it? Now, you're probably going to go, well, I don't know how else I could do it. It's something you've done for many, many years. And whether you're 18 now or 25 or 45, it doesn't matter. You've been doing it for years. You don't even think about that. You just go about the process of tying your shoes. Well, believe it or not, most of our day-to-day decisions are like that. You might say, well, what do you mean? Well, you have built up the mental pathways to know how to tie your shoes, and you just do it in muscle memory without thinking about it. And a lot of our day-to-day decisions are done the exact same way. And the more times we do it, the easier it is for us to do it, and the harder it is for us to change. So think about this. Maybe you have a friend who's habitually late. You know that they're going to be 10 or 15 minutes late to dinner, to the barbecue, to the party, to the movie, wherever. They probably don't think like, oh, I'm going to be late and it's okay. They're probably not making that thought. What probably happened is sometime when they were younger, they were a couple minutes late and it was okay. And then they realize, oh, I know that I have to be there at this point, but I've got to finish this game or I got to finish this whatever. And then they were late again. And now they don't even think about it. In fact, I know people who will tell everyone a certain time, and that other friend, they'll tell them 15, 30 minutes earlier sometimes. That's an example of a day-to-day thought that you don't give any thought to. It's a decision that's become a habit. And this works in a lot of cases. Well, in cheating, and in cheating is really taking a shortcut, that is something that also happens. Sometimes it's because we want to impress someone and look at how good we did. Maybe we want to just do it faster. But that shortcut has negative effects. I'm going to give you two examples where I've seen this done. Both of them from my time in working in industry. In one case, we had a software that we were working with. I was helping administer it in this case, and we got an error message. And this was relayed to us from another group of people. Myself and another person were the administrators. The other administrator got the message a little bit before me, And she looked up the error message in Google, got an answer, and sent it off. As soon as I got in, I saw that error message, I saw her reply, and I sent a reply out. Whatever you do, do not do that. Stop immediately. Well, that response got a few interesting replies. Let me be honest. How could I say that I need to stop this immediately? This is supposed to be a solution. The problem was that the person looked up the error code and immediately fired off a response. Didn't bother to read through it and do their due diligence. And in not doing their due diligence and being correct in it, the problem was they picked it for the wrong software. And if that solution had been applied, it would have made the problem worse or been completely ineffective. That was a simple shortcut where it could cause major problems. All because the person wanted to be first. They wanted to look better to the boss. Now, that's sometimes what happens when a student decides to cheat. They see that they have something else they want to do. Maybe they want to get their assignment in first because that's more important, whatever. And it causes a long-term problem. So that's one example. Now, the second example I want to give you deals with a third party that came in to do some work for our organization. This was in a product called Salesforce. You might have heard of it. Is that in Salesforce, you have to have a certain amount of code have unit test. And a unit test is there for a reason. It helps minimize the number of problems you're going to have, lets you catch errors earlier, and it's a good thing to apply in major software engineering projects. Now, this organizational group created unit test. And so I was doing some work with them, and I saw their unit test, and I said, well, all you have in here is lines of I++, I++, I++. There's over 200 lines of code like that. Why is that? The reply I got back was, well, this function is so complicated, we have no way of knowing if it's right or wrong, so we just put this in as a unit test because we have to get a certain number of lines of codes in unit test. This way it passes in Salesforce, and we can hand it off to user acceptance testing, and if there's a problem, they'll let us know. Now, if you're going, who thought that was a good answer? Who thought that was a good idea? You're not the only one. I definitely had that thought. I'm like, if you don't know if this is right or not, what's the odds of you getting it right in the main function if you don't know what the answer is supposed to be? The person had decided to skimp, cheat their way through the project. So what was I to do? Well, I did the only thing I could do. I told my boss and said, look, this is a problem. We can't trust this data. We can't trust this data, so we need to be extra vigilant. Whoever is doing the sign-off testing for this needs to verify even harder. They need to double-check things, and we need to double-check everything, because if they did it here in this one test, odds are they did it in other tests. If they did it in other tests, there's other errors that could be out there. That was not a well-received message. People didn't want to be told that stuff was not going well, but it was the right thing to do. When we skimp on tests or when we don't understand the problem, and instead of going and asking for clarification because it's easier for us to make an assumption, it can lead to troubles later on. This can be seen in all different types of cases, and sometimes it's minor and it costs a few dollars. Sometimes it's major. We see in industry all the time where people say they have to release on a certain date, and instead of doing proper testing, shortcuts are made. And now we have auto-driving cars that maybe run into things that they're not supposed to. There's a current lawsuit going on, an investigation about that very thing with one of the car manufacturers and their auto-driving capability. Or like a few years ago, when a plane crashed because of a software glitch. The software problem was not properly understood, and it cost the lives of over 200 people. So having a case where you cheat down here on maybe a little test, and it's not that big a deal, may not seem like much, but what happens is it starts to form a habit that's used here and here, and now it's just a habitual type of thing. And that's harder to break the more you do it. So my recommendation to you, what I'm asking of you, because I don't know where you go, and you might be working with self-driving cars or self-flying planes or who knows what. Think about how your actions today are going to affect the future you, because they will have an effect. And start to make the right decisions, even if it's a hard decision now. That's why I tell my students not to cheat. Not because you're going to make me look bad, or a school look bad, or your other classmates look bad, but it's about being a good human being. Someone who can be dependable, someone who's honest and trustworthy, and someone who you can trust in their end result. So if you want to know why you shouldn't cheat, that is the reason why.